Welcome to Homeschool Your Way. I'm your host, Janna Cook, and Bookshark's community manager. In today's episode, I am joined by Vicki Miller. She is a homeschool mom of 3 graduates, and the 4th is almost there. She's also the director of exhibitors and vendors for the Great Homeschool Convention. We're just going to be talking about Vicki's journey accomplishing some homeschool successes and seeing an end to her season. But also, we're going to give you guys some tips and encouragement about homeschool conventions this season and what you can expect if you choose to attend one. Vicki, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
For those who don't have the pleasure of knowing you, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you entered the homeschool world?
Sure. So I'm a wife to 1 and mom to 4. I was in Dallas, Texas at a Bible school with my husband when our son was ready to go to school. And I didn't want to send my son to the local public school. And so I decided he would go to a charter school. We found that it not going to work for us financially or just the time commitment that it was going to take for that. And with another 2-year-old along the way, I just didn't want to be in Dallas traffic for hours a day. So I decided, how hard could it be to teach someone to read? So I picked up homeschooling and never looked back. That's just how we got started. I mean, it's not dramatic or this long foreseen dream come true. It just fell in our lap. It was something that we needed to do, and we did it.
I do have a hidden jealousy for those families who have this passion from the beginning. This is what we want to do. We know we're going to do it. It sounds, and maybe I romanticize it in my brain, but I think, oh, that's so beautiful. And like you, I wouldn't even say we fell into it. I've admitted all the time I was a reluctant homeschooler, even though I was homeschooled as a child. So everyone's journey starts and ends in a different place. And it's so encouraging to hear others' stories to know that, oh, okay, yeah, I don't maybe necessarily fit in with those people who knew from the beginning or felt like this is what we wanted to do. It kind of just happened. And I think that typically both of those beginnings end in the same place, which is gratitude for the time that they had at home for their children. Speaking of having 4, and their age ranges are pretty stacked on each other, what is the age difference there?
So our oldest will be 25 next month, and our baby is 17. So we had a 7-year gap, 4 kids under the age of 10 and trying to school. It was quite interesting. Is the word I will use. But like you said, I mean, I think we can romanticize homeschooling all day long and just have this beautiful picture of picnics and beautiful days, and although there are those, and there are so many of those, a lot of times it's just like pulling up your shirt sleeve and going, we're doing this, and we're committed to it, and this is why we're doing it, and we're going to keep doing it even on the hard days, because I can't tell you how many moms I've talked to along the journey of homeschooling. So now it'll be, over 20 years for us when our daughter graduates this May, that we've heard just people say, like, I've told my kids I'm putting them on the school bus tomorrow, and it's like, yes, we all get that to that point, or we all get to that day of just like, I'm done. They don't listen, they don't care. And then to get to the other side of it, like we are as parents now, is beautiful. I mean, absolutely beautiful. We were talking about, like, thank you, and how a lot of parents don't see it in year 1, 2, 3, forever down the way. And not that our kids didn't say thank you. They did say thank you to us for, like, great opportunities they had that most people don't get to do, like literally getting to see the arches, and hiking canyons, that getting to see the north and south rim of the Grand Canyon in person and hiking it, and being in state parks or national parks, hikes for 15 hours. I mean, just the things we've gotten to do and see are absolutely amazing. I taught all of my sons to cook and to clean. We've taught our daughter how to change a tire and do her own gas and oil. I mean, like, we wanted to teach our children. My husband's always been the provider for our family, and I've always been the stay-at-home mom. maybe done some stuff on the side, to help out here and there. But we always wanted to show our children that you need to be self-sustaining individual, right? So yes, it might be great that you provide for your family and your wife stays home, or you both work, or whatever you choose to do, but be able to do all the things so that you are a blessing to whoever you end up marrying, or if you're on your own for a long time, well then you can feed yourself, I mean, like, so it was beautiful because we included home economics, in our homeschooling. And so we had like, you have to be able to cook this meal on your own. You have to make a grocery list, a menu first, and then a grocery list, and go buy the groceries and stay in your budget. And so we just incorporated life skills into our homeschooling. And so I can't I can't say enough how great homeschooling journey is or was for us. I mean, we're at the end. Like, we're at the very, very end. I mean, I'm holding on, to the, to the graduation gown, as tight as I can, but it's happening, and it's going to be here before you know it. And yeah, and so it'll be the end for us too. And I'm excited, I'm excited that my kids, as different as they are and as many struggles as they've had, because some of them have had some really big struggles in life, they know who they are as people. And I think that as a homeschooling parent, and just a parent in general, that's a blessing. I mean, my kids are confident people. They're not perfect people by any means, and I would never want that for them, but they know who they are. They know what they like. They know what their gifts are and their talents are. And I can honestly say that all of them are living that out. Are they all making the best decisions all the time and what I would choose? No, but I didn't do that for my parents either. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think what the beautiful thing that happened for my husband and I was when we finally let go of expectations of our children that we had, and probably projecting, because you want your kids to do better than you. I mean, you want your kids to go further than you. You want your kids to have a happy, successful, easy life. Well, newsflash, that's not reality. It's
Right.
just not. I mean, they need to know who they are. They need to know their struggles, their weaknesses, their strengths. You do the best you can with the information and knowledge you have at the time. And so I would say, like, stop being so hard on yourself as a parent. I have some friends and I that we had a homeschool group, and we homeschooled. We had a homeschool group, and we did all the home things. We were the home people. It was great while it was great, and then when it wasn't, it wasn't. And there was a lot of hurt, and there was a lot of turmoil that happened in that time, but we all came out alive, right? And we came out learning so many things. And so, we think that as, like, parents, when our kids are small, like, when they can just do this, when they can just dress themselves, when they can just, be self-sufficient in schooling, when they can just, we get in this mindset, which is, it robs us of when they can do this and when they can do that. I promise you, you're going to blink and you're going to be going, our kid's going to be 25 and our last one is graduating. Like, how did that happen?
But
Um,
Vicki, didn't so many people tell you that in that moment and you couldn't see it? Because
yeah,
I know I was there. It was like I had twin toddlers and I had another baby and I was like, what did I get myself into, and then as they're going into the school age and then let's homeschool. And it is so hard. And people say like, oh, it's gonna go in a flash. And I was like, can't come quick enough. And like you, now I'm here and it's almost like a phenomenon. There's no way you can, and you could try. You have to, I guess, if you were incredibly intentional to be that young parent who was heeding the wisdom of their elders, to maybe pause and enjoy. But I think some things in life you just don't know because you don't know. And it isn't until you've gotten to the end and you turn around and you say, ah, they were right. They were so right. And I can't go back. And I agree with you. It's like now that we're here, we're looking back and it's like, please enjoy that. Enjoy that nap. Enjoy that you had toys on the floor, and I remember being in that moment, go, are you crazy? These
Yeah.
toys have to get picked up. Homeschooling is no different than parenting. You have that firstborn. You're going to do it all right. You're going to do it by the book. Then the second one comes, then the third one comes, and sometimes you forget there's a fourth one, right? And I think it's very similar with homeschooling. I think we all come into it and we're like, we're going to do it by the book. It's going to look a certain way. And it's only with time and experience that we loosen up.
Yeah, yeah. And I think right, hindsight is 2020 on all things life. I think that some things you could do to help yourself is to probably remove yourself from social media to compare, right? Because somebody's homeschool journey is going to look so much more beautiful than you, or so much more excellent and like praiseworthy than you. And the reality is it's Facebook worthy, right? It's a
Right.
Facebook picture or a Facebook. I mean, I remember putting on Facebook years ago my homeschooling room, and I literally had a desk for each child, their name printed on a thing, their supplies in a backpack. I mean, like what was I thinking? Like the time and energy I spent on that to create this thing that we didn't use. Not that some people don't use it or that it is not a successful tool for some people. It wasn't for my family. That's not how we did things well. And so I think the unfortunate way that we compare ourselves robs us of so many great things. The little
Yeah.
moments, the not to mention, it doesn't just rob us of little moments, it also robs us of time, right? I remember being an overwhelmed mom that just grabbed Facebook and checked out, and I remember my kids talking to me about it later,
Mm,
like, you checked out, and I'm like bawling, I did, I'm so sorry, I mean, just the other day, my son, my oldest, called and he was asking me something, and I was busy with work, and so I was talking to him, but I was working, and so I called him back and I was like, I'm so sorry, Colin. And he's like, why? What's wrong, mom? And I'm like, I am so desperately seeking to be in the moment with all the things of with my work, with my home life, with my friendships, with my family. And I was busy and I didn't give you. And he was like, it's so I literally was crying. Like I
mm,
just because I want to be in the moment. I want to be in the moment. I want to go back to those moments. I know I can't, and I don't live in that regret, but I do want people to know that, like, whatever means you have right now in this moment is enough, you
yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
it you don't have to have the $2,000 curriculum because it's out there. I'm working for the Great Homeschool Conventions. That was something we went to like 14 years ago or 12 years ago as a family, just to go in Fort Worth, when it was in Fort Worth, Texas. And I like to be busy. I don't sit well. I don't just relax like my husband can. I really just need to be moving. And so we were sitting there, and there was a need at the convention, and so I was like, I'm going to volunteer. And my husband's like, of course you are. So I volunteered, and then the next year they asked me, like, that weekend, like, hey, would you come back next year? And I was like, sure. And so I went back, and for like 9 years I worked for them in Texas when they were in just here in Texas. And I just worked, and it was the greatest thing. It was great. And then I came on with them almost 2 years ago now, full time. Uh but finding that, like, convention, like, I had been to other conventions before, like with moms. It was like always on mom's Mother's Day weekend. So we would, like, there was this homeschool day at Six Flags in Arlington. So we'd do Six Flags with our kids for the homeschool day. And then the husbands would come and take the kids away. And us moms would, like, literally 4 to 6, because finances were limited, share a room and then go to the convention, right? Go to this other convention. And it was good for the time because it was mom time. But what I found with the great homeschool conventions was it was literally a family event. And I
Mhm.
loved that there was something for the dads and something for the moms and something for the families and something for the teens. And so that was a beautiful thing to find and then get connected with and still be with all these years later. And what I love about it is that because I try to tell so many families is you may not have right to buy the $2,000 curriculum, and not that's not knocking it because they are available, but go to a convention and like put your hands on it. Put your hands on
Yeah.
it and see like, oh my gosh, my kids would dig this. My one kid that loves to read would eat this place up. And and so find the things that you can and that will work for your family, and don't be afraid to get something and then it be a flop. I mean, like, that's life.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, failure, right? That's
yeah,
first attempt in
that,
learning. Like, that's how you
that's the
figure it out.
first. Yeah, and when that's failed, go, okay, it didn't work. Don't cry, don't get on a puddle, just be like, it didn't work. It might maybe bless another family. Maybe say, hey, this didn't work for us, but let somebody try it. And if they're like, oh my gosh, that's the greatest thing ever, well, just know it's okay. Like, that's the most beautiful thing I feel like about homeschooling is I'm not anti-school or public school. But when you can tailor your kids' education from the beginning till the end, I mean, like, we had a kid that had a really, really hard time learning to read. I mean, I'm talking double digits and wasn't reading. And I remember going to a friend and like, will he ever read? Like, is this kid ever gonna read? Like, what am I doing wrong? And they were like, it's okay. Like, instead of being like, you have to read these books, because back then I was like, you have to read just these books. They're like, give him, literally, somebody said, give him Diary of a Wimpy Kid and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I mean, that's not, that wouldn't have been an acceptable book in my group of, a
Yeah.
living book, right? But I was like, I mean, I have nothing to lose. Like, I have
Right.
nothing to lose. So I gave it to him, and I am not kidding. My husband and I stood outside the boys' room when they shared it, and we both were crying because he was laughing. He was like he wasn't reading the books. He was devouring the books. And
Mhm.
he read every single one of them multiple times. We couldn't buy them off Amazon fast enough, the next one
Right.
to have for him. And the light went off and he was reading. And then he was reading like eighth grade material. And we were
Right.
like, what just happened? Well,
Mhm.
what happened was we gave him what he needed,
Yeah.
right? We took the pressure off of, you have to read the Charlotte Mason book. Those are wonderful, and we read them all the time. You have to read
Yeah.
this. And we gave him what somebody would have considered twaddle, and it opened
It
his eyes.
ignited, yeah, it ignited his passion for reading,
And
which
I'm telling you,
yeah.
this kid is young. He's married. He is like blowing our socks off with what he's doing in his job. And it's beautiful to see their journey though. I mean, it really is beautiful. We
Yeah.
have our second son, he's the brains of the operation. I mean, he's so smart. Uh, he didn't get it from me. Okay. We're just gonna put that on the table. But he taught us so many things along the way. Like, we were so dependent on him for things like, well, Tanner can fix it. Well, Tanner can fix it. Tanner knows what he's doing. Tanner. And finally he sat us down with a PowerPoint and was like, so when you're having trouble with your computer on this, I need you to, I mean, we laughed, but it was so good because he was letting us know, hey, you're being a little too dependent on us, on me.
Right.
And he just showed us his skills. And so it, I don't know, I just I mean, so many people knock unschoolers, which I think is silly because I think I've kind of become an unschooler, which is hilarious. I mean, hilarious for where I started, because now I'm just like, you know what? It's all going to work out. I mean, I
Right.
remember a friend that was so rigid and like the kids were miserable, not kidding. And another friend who was like, I just decided when my kids learned to use Google, they could graduate. And I remember being like, wait, what did you say? And she's like, yeah, like, I mean, if they can use Google, they can figure anything out. I figure they can graduate. And I remember going, I'm not sure if I just heard the most offensive thing or the most genius thing. Like
Yeah,
it was such a moment for me of stop holding on so tight. Like,
right.
not the same thing doesn't work for everybody, and that's everything in life. So why do we
I
expect children to be that way?
Yeah, and I think back to the convention side of it, being in a place where you can explore different ways to do it. I know that it's easy to get caught up in a homeschool group that does it a certain way. And especially when you come into it, and that just seems like that's the way to do it. Why would we deviate? Right. But then all of a sudden, if you see that something's not working, because maybe for your first child, that way works great. And you go with it and it's like, but then all of a sudden your second child throws a wrench into things and it's like, wait a second, you're supposed to be able to reuse this curriculum because that's how it works in this group. But when you show up at a convention and you see different schools of thought, you see different ways to do the exact same thing with the same result, but a different formula, it is really, I think, eye-opening for parents to understand that we're seeing education through the lens that we were brought up in. And so then we're introduced to this, you know, rogue idea of homeschool, and we're into it. We're like, okay, we can embrace it, but even within homeschool, there are just so many different avenues. And I think a convention is a beautiful place to go in and see the different materials, the different schools of thought, the different ways to do things. Like, oh, I never thought of it like that. And I have found myself more than once saying, man, if somebody would have taught me math like that,
Oh
I
yeah.
could have been an engineer. If somebody had shown me science in that way, I probably would have been a doctor. Like, and not, I don't have regrets. I love what I get to do, and but I love sharing that information with people that it's like, if something's not working, if your child's in tears, if you're miserable with your choice, and you kind of have this idea, I made my bed, I have to lay in it, right? It's like, we're giving you permission to step out of that. You do not need to be stuck in that. You don't need to make your child miserable because you feel like you've made a decision that you can't deviate from. It's like, but again, I think if people can heed the wisdom, because I'm 8 years in, and you ask me now, my daughters, my older two who are graduated and almost graduated, they'll be like, what is Courtney doing these days? And I'm like, I mean, and they're like, "We would have never been able to do that." And it's true. Like, she's a different kid. I'm letting her explore her talents. She is doing some theater stuff and some dance stuff. And now we are getting some core curriculum done as well. We are Bookshark users, but it's not the same as I was in the beginning, where it's like the pressure of this has to get done, because you get comfortable. It's like any relationship. You get more comfortable and you're like, oh, it's okay if I don't have my shoes on, all right, I like to have my socks off now. Like, it's
Right.
a level of comfort that I think does come with time. But if parents who are just starting out can hear us and just say, like, it can look however you need it to look. Again, like the podcast, homeschool your way. Like, it may have worked for me this way. I tried to replicate that in my children. That did not work. We were all miserable. I mean, so life is so short. And like you said, I would love to meet your friend with the Google idea, because while I don't necessarily ascribe to that point, I do like the concept that it's like, you know, we're learning now that more than ever, kids need to be able to think critically and be able to problem solve more than they need to know certain data.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that I remember getting to a point where I was just like, I'm letting go. Like, I'm letting go of the time frame. I'm letting go of, we have to have all these things, because I'm a list maker and a list checker offer. And so when those things get checked off, man, I'm feeling like, ooh, I can do all these things. but I also was a mad mom sometimes because I am a doer. And so I love a clean home. I love a home cooked meal. I love for my kids to look presentable. I like to wear muumuus, but I do make myself presentable when need to be. Um, but I had so many expectations and demands on me that I couldn't enjoy all the things because yes, their school was done, great, but what's for lunch, what's for dinner, what am I doing next? And so I remember when I was like, okay, I'm gonna make a menu and you're responsible for this day. Colin gets this day, Tanner gets this day, Owen gets this day, and Lucy and I get this day. And this is our lunch menu. And we don't have a microwave. We've never had a microwave in our home. And so we use our stove all day. Like we do things together as a family. But I remember when I came to my kids, it was the end of the year, 1 May, and I said, so I'm changing things up. We had a family meeting. We had a family meeting often, and they were like, okay. And I said, we're not finishing school. We're literally starting, like you're starting 10th grade, you're starting 7th grade, you're starting. And they all just were looking at me. And I said, because guess what? We're going to school through the summer. We live in Texas. Okay. We don't do a lot of things outside. We're going to school. We're going to take off June and we're going to travel and camp because we were a huge camping family. But we're going to school July and August because guess what? Next year, we're done in March. We're done in March. Like when people are getting off for spring break, we are done with school. It rocked their world. And and then they were like, "Can we do that every year?" And it just made sense. And so I guess I'm saying that for just like do what makes sense for your family. You don't have to be at school 8 hours a day like they are in public school. You don't have to have a certain curriculum. Your kids don't have to do all these things. I mean, mine and my husband's goal when we started homeschooling our children a long time ago was we wanted them to be decent human beings and we wanted them to serve others. I didn't have a goal of somebody becoming a lawyer or a doctor. I didn't have a goal of you have to get into this school or else. Like none of those things mattered to me and they still don't matter to me. So I think we talked about earlier, like finding your why and finding our why of what we were doing this because um it was something I went back to sometimes 10 times in a day. I would close my door and lock it and be like, why am I doing this again? Because I don't think anybody cares and I'm not sure that I still care. And so what am I doing? And just going back to my why, which my husband and I would write it out and we would talk about it together because there's inevitably going to be days where I'm done and he's encouraging me, or he's like, yeah, you need to be done. And I'm encouraging, you know what I mean? So we help each other in that staying balanced. But I mean, it's been the greatest journey. I would do it again, all over again. I would do it again. Sure, I would incorporate. I would like to think I would incorporate the things I've learned. But the reality is we're humans. We don't always get it right. But the journey along the way and the blessing that it's been. I mean, it has. I could probably make a list of 10,000 reasons why you should homeschool,
Yeah.
and the start of it being I got to do things with my kids and experience things with my kids and walk through things with my kids and have conversations with my kids that they weren't necessarily having with their peers. We got to vacation together on the off season and enjoy all the things that we got to do in nature and they got to learn. And at one point my mom was really sick and she had to come and live with us and we didn't school for 3 solid months. And I had some people go like, are you just not going to finish the year? I think somebody was real concerned and I'm like, we're not. Like we're now doing life skills and we're learning how to take care of somebody who's bedbound and we're learning schedules of this medication had to be at a certain time and we're learning hospitality skills and we're learning service skills and we're doing all these things that happen in life. And so it's important. And so I was like, we're done, we're closing the books and we're done with school and we're going to do this. And I just remember now that I'm talking to you about it, the journey, so many things that we're done well. And that feels good because I've beat myself up quite a bit about the things I did do wrong. But it feels good to think about the things that we did do, maybe, subpar, but we still did them and we weren't terrible. And our kids aren't terrible, and our kids are thankful for the things that we taught them. So yeah, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the journey. And I just think if you're going to do it, do it. You won't ever be prepared enough. You won't ever have enough finances or time. Just do it with the resources you have, the time you have. Um, and let go of the expectations from everybody else around you. I remember when we first decided we were homeschool, my in-laws were educators and had been for over 30 years. And I remember when we went to them and we were like, so we're gonna homeschool. And they kind of both, tilted their head a little bit, like, wait, what? Um, you know, like we had, a third eye right here staring at us. And I cannot tell you the support we gained from them then and now, and the difference it has made. And they could not be more proud of their grandchildren. And I remember them taking the kids and them being little, and that they came back and said, the kids can have conversations with adults. And I was like, excuse me? And they said, like, your kids don't just talk to kids, like they literally can have conversations with adults. And they became our probably biggest cheerleaders and supporters of homeschooling, just seeing it lived out. They've been there through the whole journey. And so yeah.
Well, Vicky, I'm so glad that we got to take, this journey with you as you kind of have reminisced about your process and how things have started and now have come to an end for you and your family. Thank you so much for coming on. And we're going to make sure to link in the show notes for Great Homeschool Convention. And hopefully there is something near to those who are listening and they can go check it out. Stop by the volunteer booth or make sure to say hi to Vicki. And as always, Bookshark will be at all of the Great Homeschool Conventions. So make sure that you come and see us there. Vicki, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you guys. Until next time. Bye bye.